Oh, oh, oh. सदाशिवसमारम्भाम् शङ्कराचार्यमध्यमाम् अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम् वन्दे गुरुपरम्पराम्। ॐ पार्थाय प्रतिबोधिता भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्दधामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम्। यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्ररुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्गपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसा यस्यं पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तं न विदुःसुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः। देवाय तस्मै नमः।
Hari Om Shankarji.
हरि ओम।
Back. So, how are you?
I am doing very well, thank you.
Travel was okay?
It was very nice. Yeah.
Yeah. No.
So we have started chapter 2 and we are into almost verse number 14. Yeah, we completed verse number, or rather we touched upon 14 and we'll complete that verse and continue with 15 as we move forward. Yeah. In chapter 2, as we got a little break, there are a few points which I would like to touch. That important verse, the teaching of Lord Krishna starts from verse 11 onwards, where it talks about Bhagavan Uvacha. So, Bhagavan, the Krishna, starts teaching Bhagavad Gita, the Sankhya Yoga, to Arjuna, starting with verse number 11, where he says, Asocyan anvasochasvam prajnavadamscha bhashase gatasuna gatasunscha nanusochanti panditaha. And in 12, in continuation, Natvevaham jatunasham natvam neme janadhipaha nachaivana bhavishyamaha sarve vayamataparam. So he starts with this one telling that Arjuna, uh, you are getting perturbed, getting sorrowful about things which you should not be getting sorrowful about. So he says that the Pandita, the people with the knowledge of the self is Pandita. I will not go into the details once again, otherwise it will be repeat class. So Pandita, those people who knows the idea of what the self is, Atma Jnanam, as we call that. Those people who have that, they are not worried about the people who are breathing and people who are no longer breathing. Now it may sound very tough, yeah, when Krishna says like that they don't care about people. That's how it may appear to. But what he means is the the thing that breathes and the thing that won't breathe again is not really you. That Atman which is there, Atma is the self. Yeah, self means what I feel I am. That self which is there is beyond the body, mind, intellect. We have gone through this teaching as such. So what it kind of indicates is that the Atman is something different from and separate from the layers of inert layers of body, mind, and intellect. And that I-ness which is there, the I-ness which actually reflects in these layers, enlivening them, is not really you. You are much beyond that. And we have seen examples of that in terms of, for example, moonlight. The moonlight may appear to be very limited to the moon, and it is integral part of the moon, inherent aspect of the moon. But once you try to understand the science behind, you will see that that the sun radiation is not really limited to the moon. However, wherever the surface of the moon comes across, it reflects the light. And although experientially moonlight is reality, but once we understand that the moonlight is no longer the limited to moon, in fact, it is no moon doesn't have a inherent light of its own. It only reflects the sun's radiation, and to us it appear to be moon. So it's not limited to moon only. If a Jupiter comes in the sun's radiation, we can see that as well. But because it is far away, we call that a star. Really speaking, everything is being illumined by the same sun's radiation, and the reflection is only, we are thinking that it is inherent to these bodies. Similarly, the consciousness is neither the product of the body nor the part of the body. We have gone through those aspects as such. It is much beyond, but experientially it appears to be limited. So when Krishna says that Panditaha, they will not get perturbed if somebody stops breathing, means when the body stops breathing, what Krishna is trying to say is you are much beyond this body, mind, intellect as such. And in Natvevaham Jatunasham, he says that whether it is him or Arjuna or the Rajas around them. Because Arjuna's main problem was he's going to kill these kings who are his close relatives, teachers, and elders. His problem was that. So he says, none of them, there won't be a time when they will not be there. There was never a time when they were not there. And Arjuna is pretty clear that they are there in front of him right now. So present is not a problem. So by telling that, Krishna brings in some important aspects of this Atma. So here in verse number 12, he brings out that aspect of the character of the Atma, which is called Nitya or eternal. So the one which is eternal is which is there in all three periods of time, past, present, and future. There is never a time when Atman is not there. Atma is everybody's Atma, not one. It is Atma of Krishna is there, but Atma of Arjuna will die. Nothing like that. It is eternal, and one Atma illumines like sun. One sun illumines all the planetary bodies, illumining them at the same time, giving an illusion of individuality with respect to that illumination. Similarly, the single Atma illumines every being, everything in the universe. However, that particular Atma is you. It is not that Atma is different and you are different. You are one and the same. This he brings out in verse 16 and 17. We will see. So the 12th, 11th, and 12th, very important aspects illustrating the nature of the Atman, nature of the self, he brings out in those two verses. Now, coming back to, but the problem remains that I am individual. That problem still remains. So in verse number 13, 14, and 15, he tries to bring in or illustrate the nature of anatma. Atma is self, anatma is not self. Okay, so the not self is objects outside, which is pretty easy for us to understand. Chair is a anatma, it is not me, it is beyond, it is outside me. So how do I define this I? Is the main aspect which comes into picture, because normally we think we are this body, mind, and intellect. Even if intellectually we may say that there is a consciousness which is illumining them, the experience that the body is me, mind is me, and intellect is me doesn't leave that easily. Prana, senses, everything is me. This conglomeration is what I think I am. The entire things put together is what I think I am. So Krishna will try to explain a bit more into what is this Atma. So instead of telling Atma is outside you, like what I mentioned, radiation of the sun doesn't belong to the moon. It is it is outside the moon, away from other than the moon, and it is not limited to the moon. However, it may appear to be so because wherever surface is there, it tends to illumine. Other seems to be dark, so we think that moon is got a intrinsic light associated with it. But once the knowledge dawns, we know that is not the truth. So in verse 13, he talks about Dehinosmin yadha dehe kaumaram yavvaram jara tada dehantara praptihi dhirastatra na muhyati. So he now is telling what is exactly this anatma when it comes to individual being, um, that which is changing every second of your life, um, and this is indicated by Kaumaram, Yavvanam, and Jara. Kaumaram is the childhood. So the body goes through a lot of changes in your life since you are born. You went through the childhood, you went through the youth, and from youth there is no middle age as far as Krishna is concerned. He simply moves to Jara. Jara is the old age. So you have gone through all these balyam, that childhood and the youth and the old age. Similarly, he says you extend a bit more and says dehantara prapti. So once this body goes down, there will be another body that you will be taking up. Similar to this, yatha and tatha. Yatha, just like. And just like Dehinosmin means one who is inside your Deha. So he's not telling outside, he's telling inside the Deha. Because you will feel more easy in terms of telling that still he is inside me. He is not somewhere out and controlling me. He is inside me and controlling me. So Dehinosmin, the person who is inside you and controlling and experiencing the childhood, youth, and old age. Similarly, that particular person will also take up a new body on his behalf. His behalf means Atma, your behalf. So that is how he is trying to put across in verse 13. And in that he says, Dhiras tatra namuhyati, means the Dhira term we have seen is not somebody who is brave, but somebody who is discriminative. Dhira is one who is discriminative in his mind. So he has got intellect enough to discriminate between the Atma and Anatma, and such a person, na muhyati, there won't be any delusion when it comes to such a person that the body is not me, mind is not me. Body means automatically mind, intellect you can add. This body is not me. Very clearly that he says that. Now, verse 14, we just touched last time. We read that verse, and I think we explained also quite one or two lines in that, but we will go through this once again. Matra sparshastu kaunteya sitoshna sukha dukkadaha agama payino nityaha tam stitikshasva bharata. So here he is telling Kaunteya. Kaunteya is a son of Kunti, becomes Kaunteya. O Kaunteya, O Arjuna, Matra Sparshastu, he says. Matra Sparsha. Matra, Matra means actually measure or experience. Matra, measure or experience. How we experience or measure the world around us is through our senses. So when the senses get in touch with sparsha is touch. So matra sparsha. So the whole of your experience is through your senses getting in touch with the objects outside. And that actually gives us an experience of the universe around us. Yeah, at different levels, at bodily level, at a mental level, at an intellectual level, we get in touch with the universe outside, and that universe gives us certain impulses inside us in our mind. So they are indicated by Sitoshna Sukha Dukkhadaha. Sita Ushna, cold and hot. So it is more related to any bodily things that we are experiencing with this aspect. Yeah. So when we say matra senses, you know that we have five senses, um, and those get in touch with the outside world through certain uh, characteristic, unique impulses like Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. Shabda is the sound, Sparsha is the touch through your skin, Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa. Rupa is the form which we get in touch with through your eyes, Rupa, Rasa, taste with your tongue, and Gandha, smell with your nose. So these are the five sense organs we have, and these five Jnanendriya, when they get in touch with this five aspects that we are getting from the world around us, we get sensations inside the body and the mind. So at a bodily level, they are represented by Sita Ushna, the cold and the heat. And at a mental level, it is indicated by through the Sukha and Dukkha, happiness and sadness. So these things create when any of the senses come, a good smell will give you sukha inside. A bad smell will give you dukkha inside. Similarly, good taste, bad taste, good and bad again are relative. Some may like certain things. Taste will differ. Our desires will differ, but ultimately, everything that is coming in gives you certain um, aspects in your mind. Now, he says that these pleasure and pain or cold and hot, they are subject to Sitoshna Sukhada Agama Payino Anityaha. Remember this entire world of Anatma, when you see that, they are fleeting, because your mind jumps from one this one to the other. They are not standard, they are not continuous, they are not nitya, they are anitya, they are not eternal. Atma was eternal is how verse 12 has told us, and now in contrast the anatma is anitya. Krishna is pretty clear in telling that it is anitya, they are impermanent, and they are subject to arrival and departure. Agama Payino Nitya. Agama Payina are subject to arrival and departure. It is not a constant thing, they come and go. And he says, Oh Bharata, Bharata here represents Arjuna. He belongs to that Bharata clan only. Titikshasva Bharata. He says, endure them. Now we may think, oh my God, what is this solution Krishna is giving? Just endure them. Means everything that is coming in, if you just endure them, um, how will I improve? So such questions may come into picture, but here remember he is giving Sankhya Yoga. Philosophical aspect he is giving, and in philosophical aspect, Titiksha has got a very important role to play. Titiksha, Shankaracharya defines, last time we have seen, is Sahanam Sarva Dukkhanam Apratikara Purvakam. Sahanam Sarva Dukkhanam. Sahanam, um, you Sarva Dukkhanam, every aspect that is coming in, every sadness, every negative aspect that are coming in, you need to endure them. Sahanam is endurance. Sahanam sarva dukkhanam. Every sadness that is coming in, every bad aspect that is coming in, you require to endure them. How? Apratikara purvakam. Apratikara, don't uh, don't do that as if, oh, what should I can't do anything, so I will do. No, not like that. Accept them as they are coming in. Very, very difficult aspect for any person to do that. However, this is a very important character for a sadhaka. For a person who is on the path, this particular aspect is very important. Many things will come against your wishes. Many things will come which are not good for you, or you feel it is not in line with what I expect. And this is not limited to only office or this one. Even in our own personal life, we do get that. Not everything that comes is in line with what we are thinking should be. So, whatever comes like that, you require to um, you require to make your brain. Last time I used the word of Teflon coating. Like a Teflon coating, you require to put that so that anything that comes and it doesn't stick to it. A Teflon coated pan, you put a oil, it doesn't stick to it. You put anything, it doesn't stick to it. So that kind of a stickiness should be removed from your brain. Why? Because the stickiness is the responsible for all the aspects of our attachments, and also hatred, anger, anything that comes is because what the senses are bringing in, what your ear is bringing, what your eyes are bringing, are giving that type of a aspect in your mind where I am getting either angry, I am getting overly attached to that. So whatever comes in, you must have this Teflon coating in your mind, is what the Krishna is trying to put across here. He says enduring them becomes a very important aspect or important character one requires to develop in terms of the mind. He says that is why he says Tidikshasva Bharata. You endure them. Endurance comes only when we understand the nature of anatma. It makes it easy. Nature of the self, if you do that, it becomes easy. If you don't understand the nature of atma and anatma, it becomes very difficult for you to you tend to get the mind ride your life rather than you controlling the mind. And we all saw uh, the four horses Krishna is riding. What are the significance? What is the symbolism? We have gone through that many times before as well. Yeah. So I will not go into that. But uh, uh, what the thing is, anything that can be controlled or changed, we can work on that. Anything that we cannot work or change, you accept them. At least in the temporary time being, you accept them and then try to change over a period of time. But if you get perturbed with the things that are not in line with what you are thinking, you are not good enough for the teaching, is how Krishna will bring it in the next verse. It's not my telling, it is Krishna is telling that you require to accept. If the sun is hot, sun is hot. If the Calgary is cold, Calgary is cold. You take action to overcome them. Nobody is telling that Sitoshna means you go and sit in the snow without jacket. No, you take care of that. But let not the mind get stressed about that. You take full care, but at the same time, you enjoy the sun when it is hot. Enjoy the, say, this is source of my energy. Start reading Aditya Hridayam and be happy about it. That is how um, uh, that is how Krishna is trying to explain to, hey Kaunteya, uh, never show resistance to this. More resistance, more heat. This is the case with even electricity. If you have more resistance in the wire, in the system, more electricity it will draw. Less resistance, less electricity in terms of that. Similarly, more resistance you put, more you will involve yourself into the um, universe. So if you want to come out of it, this matra sparshas kaunteya, um, um, agamapayunacya tam titikshasva bharata. So this is what verse 14 has uh, told us. Okay. So, and remember, it's not only mind, even body, both physical and mental, we require to increase this endurance more and more. Some people, this we see that even in our regular experience of the people around, some people seem to have more resistance to pain, more resistance to the pleasure. So for them, little bit of cut here and there, they will just simply go on with their business. But some people, even a small cut, oh my God, they will run around thinking they have to go and see a doctor, thinking they will do an operation on that particular this one. So you see that, and more people with the resistance to such pain and pleasure and aspects of this sense organs, that sensations that are brought in through your senses. If you do that, then more and more you are preparing yourself for doing meditation. So the person who is sitting in the meditation, if he only starts thinking, moment he closes his eyes, all the pains and pleasures come into his mind, then it's very difficult for the meditation to continue. Yep. So he makes it very clear as to what he means by that in verse 15. We will read verse 15 and continue with the explanation. Yeah. Yam hi na vyadhayantyete, yam hi na vyadhayantyete, purusham purusharshabha, purusham purusharshabha, samadukha sukham dhiram, samadukha sukham dhiram, somrutattvaya kalpate, somrutattvaya kalpate. So he's telling here, Purusharshabha, Purusharshabha, O Arjuna. Purusharshabha means actually the best among all the mankind. Eh? So Purusharshabha, O Arjuna, Saha Purusham Yam. Saha Purusham Yam. Saha Purusham, that person whom Yete, Yete these. Yete these. What is these? He is referring back to the previous this one of Matra Sparshastha. Means these means sense organs and the objects. Person whom these na vyathayanti, do not disturb. When the sense objects and the sense stimuli that is coming in, they do not disturb. Na vyathayanti. Vyathayam is disturbing. Na vyathayanti, do not disturb. Sama dukkha sukham. He is who is equanimous in pain and pleasure. Whether a pain comes in or a pleasure comes in through our interactions with the universe, the person who doesn't get disturbed, na vyathayanti dhiram. Such a person is the dhiraha. Dhiraha, one who is wise. He alone, he means alone, kalpate, kalpate amrutatvaya. Kalpate amrutatvaya, he becomes fit for the immortality. He brings in now a word of immortality because we are talking of death. In chapter 1, Arjuna's main problem was that he is going to kill people, people who are close to him, people who are relatives to him, people who are gurus to him. So here is coming, Krishna's language is all to make Arjuna fight. That we should not forget. Although he gives the Sankhya philosophy as such, because that is the best way to understand that you require to do action as per your nature. So he is now telling Kalpate Amrutatvat. So one to become fit for immortality means become fit to gain the knowledge of the self, because that is the only way immortality will come in. If you say immortality I require for the body, just not possible. Body can never be immortal. Although we see in US and others now, there were some this ones, people are freezing themselves in cryo engines and cryo equipment for future technology may come and make them alive. So there are people who are spending money on that. Krishna is pretty clear. Body is made up of 5 elements. Those 5 elements body requires to go back to the 5 elements. So don't try to think that body will become immortal at any given time. Yeah, and you may think this is the first time this is happening. Even in Mahabharata himself, the uh, Gandhari, who is mother of Duryodhana, she comes out with a paste which actually applied to the body will make him make body indestructible. There is some story associated with that she could not ride because he did not strip himself completely, because anyway he was shy in doing in front, although Gandhari has her eyes closed with a band, but still he feels in front of mother he cannot go fully naked, so he comes with a full half pants, and that actually gives Bhima some opening for destroying the body of Duryodhana. So this is there, the preserving body, because they think body is me, is there since millennium. So here where he's talking about is it is not that uh, any of this is cannot be a 100% indestructible. So when he talks about immortality, he is only talking of your recognizing that immortal nature of yours. So here he says that sama dukkha sukham dhira. So the dhira is the person who recognizes the self as the immortal self. So the eternal immortal self is the one who is there in Atma. But how to become that dhira? Who is capable of recognizing that is the one who actually um, one who recognizes the fact that I am that Atma, I am not this body. But the teaching requires certain um, type of a mind which will accept that and do necessary sadhana to recognize and realize the self within. So the faculty of endurance, the inner strength, which we called as titiksha, is very important, and mental endurance. Um, these aspects is what he actually is he talked about in verse 15. Krishna says, without that, you will not be in a position to gain this knowledge. So very important in terms of what we should do is sama dukkha sukham. In both pleasure and pain, one who remains equanimous, one who is capable of remaining equanimous, is the only person who will be fit to receive the knowledge, fit to receive the knowledge of immortality. Yeah. Okay. Now, a very important verse is coming up in verse 16. Yeah. So dhiraha, again, I already mentioned in verse 13 also, dhiraha has come. In here also it is come. Dhiraha is the discriminative person. Okay. Okay. So verse 16, Shankaracharya considers this as the um, as very, very important verse in um, entire Bhagavad Gita, because this gives you the real philosophical teaching of Bhagavad Gita. In fact, some people call this as a Upanishad by itself. The verse 16, they call this as a mini Upanishad, because this actually gives you the summary of the entire text of Bhagavad Gita, also summary of the Advaita Vedanta. Because Shankaracharya is the one um, who propagated Advaita Vedanta in at the cost of every other philosophy that existed in his time. Yeah, he is the one who did that. So for him, this verse is the most important verse when it comes to the Bhagavad Gita. Yeah. There was a story which was there, that Vyasa, when he was writing Mahabharata and this one, Bhagavad Gita, the scribe was Ganesha. Ganesha was the scribe who actually took out his this one, and he wrote with that, is how they say. Yeah. So Ganesha said, "Okay, I will be your scribe, but remember, he put a condition, I believe. This is a story. He put a condition. What is the condition? That if you stop in between for any reason, then I will just drop the scribe duty and go away. So you should continuously write keep on telling, because I don't have time just to waste here. If you are going for sleeping, this and no breaks. You have to continuously give, and if you stop in between by for any reason, if there's a gap, I will disappear." So Vyasa is also no less. So he said, "Yeah, sure, I will do that, but I will put a condition that you should not write anything that you don't understand. You should first understand before you write." So that is his condition. From Vyasa put that. So what the story goes on to say is that when when Ganesha finds some of the verses very tough, actually on the face of it, it appears to be very simple. So Ganesha gets stuck in terms of, oh my God, why it is so simple? There must be some hidden meaning. So he takes a pause before he writes the verse, and that gives a breather to Vyasa. So there are many such verses in Bhagavad Gita that comes, and what they say is chapter 2 is filled with them, but definitely this 16th verse is one such verse, mainly to say that Bhagavad Gita covers many topics, including the deepest philosophy to the very practical karma yoga, for example, or many things. It actually, even the type of food that you require to eat, where you sit for meditation. When we go forward, we will see that Krishna, after seeing Arjuna's face, after teaching the highest teaching, he says, Arjuna comes with a question, he knows that there is a problem, we require to continue. So he brings down the teaching, till the summary is given in chapter 18 once again. And then Arjuna finally has no questions. He says, okay, I will do what you ask me to do. So he surrenders at the end of the 18th chapter. Had he asked another question, 19th chapter would have come. That is how the entire Bhagavad Gita we see is progressing. Why this is important is when you ask any master, even recent masters like Paramahamsa, Yogananda, or Ramakrishna, Vivekananda, if you ask what is the summary of Advaita Vedanta, what exactly are you talking as Advaita? They will only talk about that it is Brahma Satyam, Jagan Mithya, Jivo Brahmaiva Na Paraha. This is how in Sanskrit, the entire summary of Advaita Vedanta we can put across. Means what? Brahma Satyam. Brahman, who is the ultimate reality, is the truth. And Jagan Mithya. Mithya is an illusion. The universe is an illusion. Brahman is the real truth, Satyam. Jivo Brahmaiva na paraha. Means the Jiva, the Jivatma that I am thinking, is none other than the Paramatma. Jivo Brahmaiva na paraha. That Brahman is nothing but me. Once you realize that, your entire Advaita Vedanta is over. So again, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya Jivo Brahmaiva na Paraha. As per Shankaracharya ji, he says verse 16 summarizes the truth in no uncertain terms. Okay. So we will read this verse and we will read the verse anyway. Nasato vidyate bhavaha vidyate bhavaha na bhavo vidyate sataha na bhavo vidyate sataha उभयोरपि दृष्टोऽन्तः उभयोरपि दृष्टोऽन्तः त्वनयोस्तत्त्वदर्शिभिः त्वनयो तत्त्वदर्शिभिः. So here he says that vidyate na bhavaha. Vidyate na abhavaha. They are one and the same. Means there is no existence. Asataha. Asataha for the unreal. So for the unreal, there is no existence. Vidyate na abhavaha. There is no non-existence. He uses a double negative there. There is a no non-existence. Sataha for the real. So for the real, there is never a question of being non-existing. So there is no non-existing for the real, and there is never an existence for the unreal. And antaha, the truth, ubhayo api anayoho, ubhayor api anayoho, of both these, tu drashtaha, means indeed known, tattvadarshibihi, by the seers of reality. So for the sages, for the seers of reality, one thing is pretty clear, that both Atma and Anatma, what is the nature of them? He's telling for Atma, there is never a time when it doesn't exist. Sataha is always existing. And asataha is the anatma. There is never a real existence there is never any existence. This is how he is now putting it. We have already seen, this is a very technical verse, yeah. One of the deepest verses of Bhagavad Gita, as I mentioned already. He says Satya and Anatma, Atma and Anatma. He says Satyam, Atma is Satyam, Atma is the truth, and Anatma is the Mithya, Anatma is only illusion. Atma is real, Anatma is unreal. The terms he uses is Sata and Asataha. We have seen that in the verse. He uses these two terms. Atma has an independent existence, and Anatma is only borrowed existence. Why we say borrowed? Because he says clearly, for Anatma, there is never any existence. But our problem is, when we talk about Anatma, we are talking about this world around us, including our own body mind. But even if we take the world around us when we are saying Anatma, if he says there is no existence, Krishna is telling there is no existence to them. but I am experiencing them. It is not that I don't experience a chair. If chair doesn't have an existence, how is it that I am experiencing this particular chair? And when Krishna says that anatma, there is absolutely no existence, he is giving a very deep understanding of what he means by this aspect of truth having always existent and anatma doesn't have any existence. Never it had any existence at all. So when Krishna says such things, automatically it means there is a deeper meaning that when I say chair doesn't have an existence, what it means is chair doesn't have an existence of its own. It is depending it for its existence on something else. When we talk about this, there are certain things which are intrinsic in the nature, in their character, in their characteristics. There are certain intrinsic characteristics. Others are called borrowed characteristics. They are not characteristics of their own. It is only a borrowed characteristic which we are experiencing. Example. Yeah. When we talk about a borrowed existence, an example for that will be, again, we go back to Shankaracharya. He uses that when you put a fire, fire is hot. Now you put a pan on that fire, pan becomes hot. You put water in the pan, water becomes hot. You put a vegetable in the water, vegetable becomes hot. Now that potato is very hot, but we know that if you remove the potato from the water and keep it out over a period of time, it hotness disappears. Means the character of the hotness is not an intrinsic nature of potato, it is only a borrowed nature of potato. As long as the fire is there, the pan is there, a water is there, and this vegetable there inside, it remains hot. The moment any of this goes away, potato will come back to its original nature. Similarly with the water, as long as fire and pan are there, water remains hot. But once the pan is removed from the fire, water automatically becomes cold. So any of these layers that we are seeing as the hot layers of fire, hot layer of pan, hot layer of water, hot layer of vegetable, in this, the three which are there on the top, really they may appear to be hot for the temporary period of time as long as the fire is in close proximity. Moment we remove the fire, but fire itself, when you see, the heat is the intrinsic nature of the fire. Whether the fire is there, whether you take the fire to some other place, it remains hot because it is the very intrinsic nature of the fire itself. Whereas the others, it is only a borrowed aspect that we are looking at. Now, when we see the existence aspect, because that is what we are looking at as to Krishna is telling that nasato vidyato bhavaha na bhavo vidyate satah. This sat, that existence principle, it seems to be existing. Chair seems to be existing, but he is very clearly telling anatma doesn't have any existence at any given time. So what should be the nature of that experience that we am going through, wherein Krishna's words are in contradiction to my own experience with this universe? This is how we are going into analysis of this particular verse. Krishna says that this doesn't have an existence, but I am experiencing they exist. How to resolve this is examples of Shankaracharya's famous examples of snake and rope, the mirage which is there, the water and the sand. Sand is the reality in a mirage, but we experience water there. Mrigatrishna, as we call that in Sanskrit, mirage. Mirage water we see in a hot day in the desert. Actual reality is only sand, but we experience water there from a distance. Similarly, when briefly a rope appears as a snake, snake is there, but at the same time, we say that that is only a illusion which came out of the substratum, which is the rope. Maybe this is a standard example for this one, which is there. Another example we can give. We see again, we went through this before, but because the topic is this, we will have to again touch base. When we see a gold bangle, the bangle is there, or a pot which is there made of clay. Pot is something which we experience every day. It has got a utility, it has got a form, it has got a shape. Anybody seeing a pot who has been introduced before will recognize pot as a pot, a bangle as a bangle, and a chain as a chain. No confusion in terms of their experience. As far as experiencing them is concerned, we don't have any problem in terms of identifying them and using them as well, because they have got utility. A chain which is there, we don't put it uh, on the wrist, and a bangle comes, automatically we put it on the wrist. We know what to do when a particular name, shape, and form is coming in front of us, because they have certain utility aspect. But really speaking, once we go into the details of whether really there is a bangle, whether really there is a chain, because their entire existence is depending on the substratum. A pot's existence is completely depending on the clay which makes the pot. Clay was there before pot was made. Clay is there when the pot is experienced. Clay will be there if the pot is destroyed. Clay is the substratum. The pot doesn't have an independent existence of its own. So when you say that pot is existing, pot I am experiencing, pot is real, really speaking, we say that no, no, no. It has got only a borrowed existence. And where it is borrowing from? It is borrowing from the clay. So even when the pot is destroyed for any reason, the clay will become, pot will go back into the clay. Clay is the substratum, clay is the existence. So when Krishna says that entire Anatma never had any Sat aspect, Sat is existence. We already seen the Atman being described as Satchit Ananta. So we are looking at this entire Sat, the self, from the perspective of the existence principle. So where from the chair here is getting that existence? If the pot is getting existence because of the clay, if the chain is getting existence from the gold, where is this Anatma getting existence from? He says that Anatma gets existence from the very Brahman, the very principle. So even when the example of pot is given to the clay, again clay can also be reduced to where it depends on something else. It depends upon the five elements of water. A clay must have water, it must have the earth, and it must have certain other qualities which makes it easy for it to be molded as a pot. Only specific type of earth will be called a clay. But again, if once you reduce it, that's why the Upanishads come in great length trying to describe how the universe is made out of that single. So it talks about space is the first one created. From the space came the wind. From the wind came the fire. From the fire came to water. From the water came the earth. And all of them put together, Panchikarana, Shankaracharya comes out and describes. And ultimately is now telling that all these aspects are nothing but are depending only on the very consciousness existence principle which is there. And where is this existence principle? That existence principle is nothing but you. You are the one who's lending that existence to the outside aspects. Um, we don't have time in this class to really enumerate this particular verse. We will again go through this in the next class, and we will see how the you are the one who is actually giving this existence to the uh, world around you. The
Uh,
entire thing is
Question.
existing only because you have that uh, intrinsic character of existence. You are the one who provide this existence to the entire world outside. We'll see that. Ha, Mohiniji, you.
We say that universe, it stays there. It keeps going. So it doesn't end, except
Um,
when we say pralaya came.
correct,
Yeah.
correct, correct.
So that is one thing. And second thing is that uh, we say we give existence. It is natural because when we are born, only then we give existence to other things or even to ourselves.
Correct,
That thing which gives existence to us, I realize that that's our conscience, right?
correct.
But other things are there always, whether I am here or not, the things are there.
Okay. That's why I said we don't have time to elaborate on these.
Okay.
Um, Mohiniji is telling that the world was always there. I came in and I give existence, we say, but really speaking, I don't give existence. They were existing before and I came in, and then I'm going back. So that is the reason we will go into details of this verse once again in the next class, and
Okay.
it might
Second
take
thing,
us.
I just was under the impression that this chapter, this adhyay, I know there's whole philosophy in that, is more about Purusha and Prakriti.
Sankhya philosophy, Mohiniji is asking, sorry, I'm elaborating, a couple of people is sitting here. So she's asking, they cannot hear you. It's in the
Okay.
my this one only. That's why I'm trying to say. So she says that this chapter she thinks is only about Purusha and Prakriti, whereas we are going into other ways, other means. We are getting confused between Sankhya philosophy, which actually talks about Purusha and Prakriti, whereas Sankhya here doesn't mean Sankhya philosophy. Sankhya is only the count in terms
Number.
of the philosophy of Atman, self is how it is going on. Yeah. So Akshara Jnanam, Akshara Brahma, he comes out with these terms later, but Sankhya is not Sankhya philosophy. Sankhya is Advaita as per um, Advaita masters. That's why Bhagavad Gita was expounded by many masters in many ways. Yeah, they see in terms of this. Yeah, but we will touch base on definitely all these things, Mohiniji, in the next
Okay.
class, where only verse 16 and 17, these two are important verses, which actually brings out the other aspects. See, before we started verse 11, I gave certain aspects of this Atman. I told Krishna will elaborate this Atma, one as the consciousness principle separate from the layers. Second is it is Nitya, that is eternal, which he did in verse 12. And we also have it is Akarta Abhokta, means it is not a doer, it is not an enjoyer. He is beyond that. He is cannot do any action by itself. That also will come into picture. And it is nirvikara. Nirvikara is without any modifications, without any changes. Nirvikara, he will bring out that aspect. And most important, he says this will be aprameya. Aprameya is the Atman can never be objectified. It is ever a subject. So these are some of the aspects of Atman Krishna will bring in describing in this chapter. And that aspect is called Sankhya.
Wow.
Not in terms of Sankhya philosophy, where you Sankhya talks about Purusha and Prakriti, whereas and both are equally real. So already a dualistic philosophy has come in picture, but in verse 16 itself, he brings in Advaita. Krishna is bringing in Advaita, which we will go through in the next class.
And this chapter, especially these slokas,
Mhm.
to me, they are directed to us seekers rather than to the people in general.
It is applicable for everybody. People who seek us hopefully understand this and assimilate this better.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay, we'll stop here and then take it up in the next class. Okay. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.